Okay, we're back with my esteemed guest. He can
Yeah.
introduce himself in just a couple. Why I brought him on was because some people I think they that I just bring on certain guests for clout or something. I try to be very diverse in with whom I interact because the conversation that I have is not just only for the audience, it's actually mostly for me. It's quite egotistical that in the conversation I actually learn from another human being somewhere on the freaking planet, and that's really that's why I do this at all actually. And it's just like a secondary effect that it gets recorded and somebody can learn along the way. And then I thought to myself, there are a lot of like older men who can give me some wisdom, and that's why I brought on this cool cat. So you want to like give a short introduction to the audience if you'd like, maybe a little bit what you
Yeah.
do.
Well, on Twitter, I go
Hmm.
by Rivers Hedge. My first name is Will.
Hmm.
Yeah, 62-year-old guy. I live in Florida. I grew up in Minnesota. Uh, I retired about a little over 10 years ago. I had the luxury of being able to retire early. But that's a story all by itself. Take care of my kids. Uh, I've been hanging out on Twitter here for, I don't know, probably 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Just playing. I
Hmm.
view Twitter as kind of a gaming platform in a
Yeah.
way, and I just play around.
Yeah.
Nothing too. I'm not a troll. I'm not political. I just hang out. I try to on Twitter. I did a tweet
Hmm.
6 months ago, and I said I use Twitter. I mine my memory for things that I find useful to myself
Hmm.
and for other people. And so I'll dig through the halls of memory for stuff that's cool and interesting and useful.
Yeah. For example, I think it's you. You can draw, or sometimes you come up with this like ancient drawings of yours out of the drawer as like this is what I used to draw, right?
Yeah, I was a drawer when I don't consider myself an artist. I don't
Hmm.
use that word, but when I was young, I drew a lot. I did a lot of graphite pencil illustration, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just got back into it. Uh, the reason is that I spent the last 8 years of my 11-year retirement
Hmm.
really, really focused on what I'll call left brain. So I've been doing a blog and independent research in the quantitative finance and economics of retirement. So
Hmm.
uh, I went back and studied calculus all the way through to stochastic calculus,
Hmm.
differential equations, stuff like that, economics,
Yeah.
programming, data science, actuarial science, uh, blah blah blah. You name it. I was
Hmm.
going hardcore left brain. I was doing a lot of simulation work, a lot of modeling, a lot of really geeky, nerdy stuff,
Yeah.
which strokes one side of my, scratches one side of my brain itch.
Hmm.
Uh, but I got this whole right side of I have kind of a very strong emotional life with my kids. I'm an artist a little bit. Uh, and I'm trying to shift at my
Hmm.
current age from left brain to right. I've kind of played out the left as far as I can take it, I think.
That's
And now
interesting.
I want to focus on uh, by right brain. I don't know, define our terms: literature, art, philosophy, music,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Stuff where uh, let's say hypothetically I've got
Hmm.
25 or 30 years left.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go play shuffleboard somewhere. I'm going to live a really strong, engaged, powerful life. And I
Yeah.
want to do it. I don't want to sit in an old person's home. I want to, hike, ski,
Yeah.
spend time with my kids, spend time with my girlfriend, draw, read,
Yeah.
think, write.
So, why did you? So it sounded like you had like a plan how to approach these like 11 years after you retired. Why did you like specifically target in on the left brain versus right brain? Why did you come up with this strategy? I can imagine somebody else wouldn't have approached it like that.
Oh,
Like
okay. So how long is our podcast? Right. I'm trying to figure out how far back to go to explain that story. So actually I have to go back pretty far, but I'll keep it short. I got divorced in 2009
hmm.
after a 12 after a, I'm sorry, 18-year marriage.
Mm.
My ex-wife was kind of a globe-trotting CEO type, and so
Hmm.
she was She was gone Monday through Friday for the entire 18 years of my marriage, and we had 3 kids. And so at some point, I left my career quite a few years ago to take care of kids.
Yeah.
And then when we divorced, we divorced and moved to Florida at the same time, and it was also right during the global financial crisis. So it was a very stressful time.
Okay.
My kids were little. My youngest wasn't even preschool yet. My oldest was maybe a 6th grader, I think, 5th or 6th grade, I can't remember. And so I chose, when I moved down to Florida, I chose not to go back into my career in order to maintain continuity of care for my kids in a very, very difficult situation. I had the luxury of resources to be able to do that. So I was 50 years old. It's 2009, and about 2 years into it, I'm like, holy shit, am I really going to be able to pull this off? I got a little bit afraid of the technical aspects of retirement, and I started to dig into it, and it's like, it's like peeling layers off an onion. You keep peeling, and there's another layer beneath. And so I just kept going from simple analysis to this is going to sound a little egotistical. My guess is I'm probably one of the top few amateur retirement quants in the U.S., maybe the world. I don't know.
Yeah.
So over that whole arc of the years, I just, what it was just a combination initially of fear of my financial situation, a little bit of irritation with my bankers who kind of screwed me on something, and then just pure form curiosity. I just wanted to be able to. What I want to do is be able to see. I didn't want a number. What I want to do is be able to see the actual flow of the risk and the financial processes involved. And so each layer, I kept peeling until I had that kind of gut level sense of how the whole thing works. I think I feel like I'm at that point now, and so that's why I'm kind of done with that journey. But I dug in out of a combination of fear, anger, and curiosity.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like those 3 big emotions that I heard. It's really interesting that, how do I say this? These days, these youngsters want everything right now. For example, they want the whole world right now, or like a business or whatever. They want it to work right now. But I can see almost like a patience to it. Like, how long did it take you to get to that core gut understanding, what you just described?
I don't know, 7 years.
Yeah.
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 Well, it takes time. It takes time to learn anything. I was an active trader for a while, and the wisdom on trading is that 95% of the people fail in trading, and of the 5% that don't, half of them are just breaking even, and a few percent actually make some money. But they also say it takes about 5 years to break even, and a couple more to be flat and up a little bit. And that was about right. It took me about 7 years to start making money.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit slow, but when you're doing it on your own, it's a little bit hard.
Yeah, but in this period, then did you have how do you say, a vision, a form of solace that where you were going, or was it like treading water, take it one step at a time? I can imagine.
Oh yeah, no. If we go back, if we use 2009 as kind of a demarcation point, it was like I said, it was like a trifecta. It was a triple body blow. It was a combination of what I'll call a fraudulent move to Florida, bad faith move to Florida, global financial crisis, and a divorce, infidelity on somebody else's part. So it was a body blow. And I was like, you see a lot of guys on Twitter, the manosphere talks about betas and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I got smoked. And so I was just hunkered down, taking care of kids and myself. And it took me, I want to say, about 4 years to kind of emotionally, mentally recover. And during that time, I was, I won't say floundering. I was just a little bit formless. I was just kind of like you said, treading water. And then I started to pick up again. There's a long stretch where I was just kind of dating and taking care of kids, still formless. It wasn't until 2017 that I kind of picked up myself. I was present on Twitter around that time, and I started to kick into some serious refocus and purpose back then. That's when that whole fitness thing kind of started. And I, I can tell that story.
Yeah, tell us about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what was it 2017? Let's say that's eight years of floundering after divorce. I had been in a relationship with this. In retrospect, she's very nice, but she was a Latin woman, very, very hot-tempered. 5 years of just getting pounded by the Latin personality of this little 5 foot tall woman. And we finally broke up. It was 2017. I was 58 years old, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, dude, you're kind of heavy, and you're sedentary, and you have no purpose. And I looked in the mirror, I'm like, yuck. There's a thing in dating where if you can't even be attracted to yourself, how can you expect somebody else to be attracted to you?
Yeah, that's standard. Yeah.
Right. So I looked in the mirror, and I'm like, that dude, it's gross. And I said to myself, I'm not done yet. It's 58, I guess. 58, I guess it was. And I'm like, I have 25 to 30 years left, and I'm going to live that with purpose. And I'm not going to do it as an old fat guy, right? I'm going to do it as a young, strong guy. And I wanted to meet women on a level that made sense to me as a human being. And I wanted to the first thing I did was 2017 was to draw a circle around my feet. Okay. And committed myself to never let somebody push myself out of my center. Okay. Okay. That was number one, just to like plant my feet in the ground and say, this is my life. I'm living it for myself, not for somebody else, maybe for my kids, of course. But, and then the second thing was, I'm like, I have to lose weight. I was a little over 200 pounds, and I'm normally through most of my life about 165, 170. So I went on a crash program of changing my diet, losing weight, and I went to the gym. And I hadn't been to the gym in 3 decades.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so I was really kind of sedentary and weak. When I was young, I used to be a competitive swimmer. Did a lot of weightlifting. Cool. I mean, when I say competitive swimming, we would train like up to 15,000 meters a day, which is a little bit like running a marathon every day. So intense physical activity when I was young. Here I am, 58. I'm kind of a dumpy guy. So I wanted to work out, but I dreaded the idea of the gym. So here's what I did. For anybody older out there that can't get motivated, here's what I did on the first day. I told myself, I said, Will, if you can get to the front door of the gym, all you have to do is open the door, and then I give you permission to go home, as long as you do one more thing when you get there. That's what I did. I opened the door. I thought about going home because I didn't want to go in. And I said, as long as I'm here, I'll go in, I'll do one thing. And I ended up doing a couple things. And then the next day I went back and I did that plus one more thing. And if you extend that out, that's a recursive process that ends up being the standard progressive load weightlifting program. I lost 35 pounds, added actually probably lost more than that. I added, 10, 15 pounds muscle. Got pretty fit after it took me about 2 years to do that. And I also learned that going every day is not productive. You really need recovery time. So it's been like 3 years now, I've kind of gotten a rhythm of work, recovery. I feel pretty good. I feel good enough to like throw out those vanity tweets on Twitter. I feel pretty good. I met a nice woman that, happy. She's very supportive of my mission. I was able to frame our relationship very early, which is something I couldn't have done when I was younger.
How do you mean that? Yes. Like frame the relation?
It's pretty
you mean
simple.
Like in the traditional way, frame, like hold frame, like the guys say, or?
I had, I don't think this is too personal. So I did something I hadn't done in other relationships where I just said, hey, on our first date, I said, hey, I've got 3 things you got to know about me. I said, number one, I'm going to be moving. I'm going to move out of Florida. I've never considered Florida home.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm a northerner. I'm from Minnesota. I'm not going back there, but I'm committed to moving to Montana in 2023 after my youngest gets out of high school. So I said, number one, I'm moving. You have to know that.
Okay.
So that's at that point it was would have been 5 years in the future. And I said number two, not to get too indelicate, I said no dead bedrooms ever again. Yeah. And if that happens, whether it's you or me, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Time to rethink the whole thing. Yeah. Move on. I won't accept it in myself or my partner unilaterally from somebody else is ridiculous. And then I said number three, and this was really important to me based on past relationships. I said you got to know that I sometimes solo travel. I will just grab a bag, a bunch of books, some drawing paper, some pencils, my phone, and I will go. And I said, it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
And because in the past, some of the women I dated, if I were to do solo travel, they're like, oh my God, what about me?
Yeah.
You don't love me? I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is how I gain energy.
Yeah.
This is how I work through myself.
Yeah.
And I kind of need to go on these, what do you ever call them? Like walkabouts.
Yeah.
Discover things, take some pictures, photography, drawing, reading, meeting people, going to bars, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I said, those are my three things. And she sat back, she goes, I don't see any problem with any one of those.
Yeah.
So I'm like, cool. So, but that's okay. that kind of framing of what's essential to me. Actually, now that I think about it, I should have had a longer list, but those three were pretty good to start with. Yeah. And she's been very supportive. Not only has she been supportive of it, she's like goading me into moving because she knows how important it is. So she's actually pushing me.
Yeah.
Which is a very supportive posture to take.
Yeah. She sounds, at least, I don't know her completely, but she sounds like the type that's really caring and wants to like enter your world and like the things that you do that you care about, like, yo, you should really do them, one of those types,
Yeah, no, she's my ex-wife was like a Genghis Khan. She was a barbarian queen, conqueror of the earth, zero empathy.
Yeah, scorched earth.
People, a human crusher.
Yeah.
My current, the woman I'm seeing right now, she's a classical pianist. She's reserved, introverted.
Yeah. I saw like a video, not of her, but I heard the music playing, and it was really good. I was like, shit. Yeah. I'm like kind of jealous.
Oh yeah, get a load of this. I love this. So she sat down. She knows that she's educating me on music, down to like, the theory of music. How the keys lay out, how the harmonics play out. She's teaching me the history of classical music, the Baroque, the classical, the romantic, the modern, so she's laying out the whole program. And I told her once that I like Brahms for some reason, I don't know why. Anyway, that was one of her favorites too. And so she kind of practiced a Brahms piece, and she goes, here, I've practiced a Brahms piece for you. Would you like to hear it? I'm like, of course I would love to hear it. So she sat down and played, and I kind of surreptitiously recorded it and flipped it on Twitter. I didn't tell her I put it on Twitter.
Yeah, did you put it on Twitter?
I didn't take a picture of her. Yeah, I put a video of put a video of my foot, but you could hear the music in the
I was looking for it like while you're talking, like, because I want to look at the time date. Like, what's really funny, I just want to share this, and maybe like I think I saw it also like on your Instagram, right? My girlfriend playing Brahms for me at happy hour. Yeah, 3 December.
Yeah.
It was crazy, like, because I think I wrote in the comments there, like, I'm a little bit jealous, like, that you have somebody that plays piano. But back then I was like seeing this girl that I see now more often. She plays the piano as well, and it was like she sent me songs and stuff like that. It's really like just a fine coincidence.
Well, the beautiful thing was that she picked the piece and practiced it for no reason other than just to play it for me.
Yeah.
She's been an accompanist, if I can't even say that right, for 40 years, more than 40 years, 45 years. She's retired now, and so she just picked a piece because she knew I liked it and practiced it and played it for me. How beautiful is that? That's a
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah. Like I wanted to share as well, like the girl, what was it? I was playing her a song just on Spotify or something, and then I don't know, we had like this, yeah, like this disagreement or something, and then out of nowhere, like she sent me an audio file, and I click on it and I listened to it. I was like, hey, that is that song, that we played that time. And they said, yeah, I was thinking about some stuff, blah blah, while playing the music, yeah, while playing the piano. I was like, I don't know, I felt something about it, like the intent behind it. A person that goes through this process just to like sit behind the piano and like I couldn't do it maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's really nice to be in a relationship that's generous. I was tell you a quick story.
Hmm.
Early in our relationship, I was kind of bitching about how nothing good ever comes in the mail or on the phone. So like all I get in the mail is
Yeah,
bills and telemarketing,
that's true.
and the phone was only either telemarketers or my ex-wife with some major problem,
Yeah.
you know. And so she kind of smirked, and the next day I got in the mail a love note from her that she had mailed like 3 days
Yeah,
before I even
yeah,
brought it up.
yeah,
So it's that kind of the only comparison I can say, I was in love with this girl when I was 19 years old,
yeah,
1979, and she would leave little notes for me. It's the only time.
yeah,
What is that, like 45 years ago or something? I don't know, 35 years ago. I don't know how long that is.
yeah.
I can't.
Blessed. Blessed, man.
So yeah, so here we are, 40 years later, and somebody's sending me nice little notes and playing little songs. It's a blessing. It's nice.
It's really nice, man, to hear. I think also because of like I don't know the style of podcast I do. I think a lot of people think I'm a little maybe like a hard ass, or the guests that I have are like like hardcore, like this alpha thing. But it's good to hear like this small nuance and yeah, a little bit softness in it. It's good to hear.
Oh yeah, that the whole alpha thing, I think is it's funny to hear 24-year-old kids talking about alpha. I mean, live a full life, have kids.
Yeah,
Be through how many 1-year relationships or 1 year or more relationships have I been in my lifetime? Quite a few.
yeah,
So if you're talking about alpha when you're 24, I don't think you know anything yet. Maybe there are a few.
yeah,
Maybe Alexander the Great and
yeah,
Genghis Khan were alpha in their 20s, but
yeah.
kids now, I don't think so. I I lost my hair raising 3 kids. I don't think I'm alpha, but
I get
I'm
your point.
certainly not. I've been etched by life.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, man. I think a lot of people have that humility with them when they've gone through stuff, and those people would never say things like alpha this, alpha that. It holds no weight for them. They focus on other things that have more value to them.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of something we talked about before the
Yeah, sure.
podcast started.
Go ahead.
So, the I was telling you that the cliche, that the trope is that
Oh yeah.
older men are mentors, younger men are mentees, and the knowledge and the energy flows one direction. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the way I'm going to set it up. So like I followed you and a couple other people because of the energy, just because of the life force that looks like is being brought to bear
Yeah.
on the path that the people like yourself are on.
Yeah.
And so somebody like me can draw energy and insight from that. And I'll extend this discussion a little bit. So at 62, I've been retired for it's pushing 12 years now, and I'm not done yet by any means. But I am in a different life stage than say a 35-year-old man. Those guys are trying to hold on to life, grasp it by the short hairs, and they're just ramping up their empire building. They're maybe getting married, maybe on their first baby, maybe second baby. They're trying to make some money. They're trying to learn, build, grow, expand.
Yeah.
Right. I am in the if you're into Vedic frameworks of the
Mm-hmm.
Hindu stuff. There's 4 stages of life. There's the student, the householder, which encompasses all that stuff I just described about the 35-year-old. And then if you reverse that flow of that second stage, you're really in the third stage, which is mind. You're releasing your grasp. Your kids are leaving the house. You're leaving the empire building to the younger men.
Yeah.
The third stage is literally called retreating to the forest, but it's not literally to the forest. It's metaphorical. You are just focusing on other pursuits. That describes where I am right now.
Yeah.
But that means that I'm releasing my energy to the younger generation and also respecting them and looking back to that as a source of energy and insight for what I'm trying to do in the next 25 years, which is not going to be playing canasta at the old people's home. It's going to be climbing a mountain or drinking at a bar with some interesting person or something. And so your Instagram and your Twitter present that kind of, man, I'm living, and I'm living now. Right?
That vitality. Yeah.
And the other thing is, and I get in, people push back on this a lot. I'll try to lay it out and see if you or anybody else disagrees. So 62, let's say my terminal age is 88 or let's say 90, just keep the math easy.
Yeah.
My guess is that last 5-year increment, say from 85 to 90, isn't going to be that great. I'll be unhealthy. I'll probably be in a wheelchair, old person. So it's not going to be super high quality. Maybe it is. So that means that the next 5 years from 62 to 67 are really, really, really important to me. Because that's the age when I can and should really live fully. I've got the ability. I'm physically able to do it, mentally coherent. And so I kind of weight that 30 years very heavily towards the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm really, my youngest graduates in 2.5 years, and I'm just chomping at the bit to get out of Florida and go do some stuff. Not even mentioning COVID and travel restrictions. So I'm really kind of eager to go take what you're doing and handle it in a way that my path would make sense.
I understand. It kind of feels humbling, that I'm much older. It's almost a couple decades apart, you and me. But I how do you say? I try to at least do it for myself. It's almost like a mirror. The Twitter, the socials, but it's almost like people seek each other out, on the platform. I always find inspiration from other people as well. But I don't know. Sometimes I have like these things that you just have to do, like for example, so I went to Stockholm in a lockdown period, like was a couple months ago, but it was one of the only countries that was open, and I just went by myself. I thought now's like a nice period, would give a nice story. I just did it because maybe I'll never go again, and now you see these restrictions and stuff like that, and I'm rethinking like, am I gonna go anywhere at all, and all these like limitations, but you just have to do it now, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So like I wrote down like that you get energy from solo stuff, solo travel. And there was this thing that I picked up, like sitting at the bar by yourself. How does one go about that? Because if you tweet that out, like for example, you just tweeted like, I like to sit at the bar by myself, it gets crazy engagement. I would never expect that, but
no, here's let me riff on that. I'll give you an example. Like I said, when I was a boy, I was pretty shy. Introvert. Actually, I was introverted. Introverted and shy aren't really the same thing.
No.
So I was an introverted guy. You draw energy from solitude, and then you can re-engage with the world, whatever. So when I was, we talked about this before the podcast. So when I was 30 years old, I'd been through a long stretch of challenges. I'd been broke 3 times. I'd been down to my last 20 bucks 3 times. Slept in my car for a while, but I finally, at 30, I'd gotten through 2 years of grad school. I had a little tiny bit of money in my pocket. I had wildly good success in graduate school in terms of my performance, and I had a job offer in hand. So I rewarded. Actually, I was 29. I rewarded myself with a trip to Greece.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so I bought a ticket on like 2 weeks notice, which I guess nobody does these days, but like, I'm like, 2 weeks, sure, ticket. And all of a sudden, boom, I'm on the ground in Athens, and I'm like, holy shit, what have I done?
yeah,
Right? And so I'll tell more of that story if you want, but like
yeah. Sure, go ahead.
the point that I was trying to get to is that when I travel alone, like the first day is scary, the second day is less scary, the third day is boring, fourth day is really boring, and by the fifth day, you're forced by the conditions of solo travel to reach out. So if you're at a cafe or something, sitting by yourself, and you see somebody over there and they're reading a book or they're talking to somebody, you hear a little bit of English or something.
Yeah.
You even if you're introverted, you reach out and you go, hey, I couldn't help. I don't mean to be rude, but I couldn't help hearing blah, blah, blah. You end up in a conversation, then you end up traveling with these people for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, building relationships and bonds that would have never existed.
Yeah.
Let's say you're traveling with a girlfriend. You're in a bubble. Yeah. You're in a bubble with a girlfriend, and you don't talk to other people.
No.
You don't engage, or at least I did. So when I solo travel, I find myself being very interested in the lives of other people.
Yeah.
And engaging. In fact, I remember being on a road trip with one of my daughters, and she goes, "Oh my God, Dad, would you stop talking to people?" You know, it's really bothering me. Like, what do you mean? This is how I learn. You know, you're in a new city, let's say some small town in rural Wyoming, and you're in some cafe. You shoot the breeze with the guy next to you, and you learn something new about how they live or what's going on in the world. You know, the weirdness and challenges of this small town. What's it like to live here? I don't know.
Yeah.
Tell me the story.
That's really interesting.
So that's what I like about solo travel. I get to like, the other thing I like is that when I traveled with my ex-wife, the trips were basically a death march through guidebooks. So if a guidebook had a list of things you're supposed to do, by God, we're going to check those off the list. Where I would much rather do a little bit of serendipity travel, where you hit an inflection point and you can go left or right. And it's like, I don't know, let's go that way just for the hell of it. Let's go see what's over the edge of that ridge, right? And so I'd much rather do kind of a little bit more randomized thing, meet some people, run into stuff that you wouldn't expect. I don't want to check stuff off the guide list. So I solo travel to, I don't know, not to be too geeky about it, to fill my soul.
Yeah.
And I read a lot. When I travel with women, not to pick on women, I get a ton of shit for reading a lot.
Yeah.
So basically it's pay attention to me. And so if I read a lot, it's like, you're not paying attention to me, or we're not checking off the list.
Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah. I get you completely, man. Like all these things that you described, it's uncanny. You and I haven't spoken about these things, but I do it as well. For the same reason that you just described. It's just so uncanny to hear it from someone else that's not me. For example, the thing that you just described, to go serendipitous ways, like I legit get lost on purpose. I'm like somewhere and like, okay, how do I get back home? My phone died again. I have these stories always that are based on that my phone dies, and then I have to walk in the middle of the night 3 hours, stuff like that. But I like to really immerse. I call it like that, immerse, because when you do a checklist, you only remember it from the photos you took or something. But if you really immerse, like if you have that weird chat with the stranger at the bar, he takes you with his friends, and something random happens, you cannot calculate it. It's not on the fucking list, That is something that is that soul filling, like that essence that you cannot tap into, like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'll tell the intro to my Greece story. So if you're willing, so I landed in the Athens airport, let's say 4 p.m, and I realized I really didn't have a plan. Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know where I was going. I had a guidebook and a place that I thought I could get to.
Okay.
So I got my way into the one thing I learned there was that, okay, so I'm a stupid American. I just assumed I'd be able to figure it out. You get there, everything's in Greek, of course, because it's Greece. To my eye, it all looked like mathematics because it's the symbology of mathematics is in a lot of Greek letters. So I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to have a hard time. So I found my way to a bus, got on the bus, and it's starting to get a little bit dark.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, holy shit, I don't know where to get off. I don't know where I am. And I just randomly, I'm like, I got to get off this bus because I don't know where it's going. I don't know where I'm going. So I got off. And I went down a large street, and then I turned left on a smaller street. And I turned right onto a smaller street, and then I turned left onto like I want to say an alley way. And I was trying to find this place. And then I went down even a smaller alley. It was like 2 shoulder widths wide, dark. It's nightfall. And I'm like, man, if I don't find this place, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then I looked up and I saw the sign, and I'm like, yeah, I think this is it. No, all it was stone steps going up, very steeply up into this old kind of brick stone building. And at the top of the stairs was a desk in an alcove with a ceiling fan spinning and a guy behind the desk smoking a cigarette with the smoke going up into the fan. Looked like a film noir kind of thing. It looked really intimidating. I walk up, and in my best guidebook Greek, I asked if he had a room free.
Yeah.
And he took a big drag on his cigarette, breathed it out. He goes, you're Greek. Which it wasn't, but in his perfect Midwestern English. And he goes, my name's Charlie. I'm from Chicago. My parents own this hotel. He goes, you look tired. He said, drop your bags. I got it. Your room's up there. Take a shower. If you need cigarettes or alcohol, I got it for you. He said, I got you totally covered. So I'm like, this fear was released at that moment. And then the next day he goes, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I just got out of graduate school. It's been a long 10 years of difficulty. And I'm just kind of patting myself on the back for making it and just enjoying life. He goes, he said, I have a plan for you. He goes, here's what I think you should do. He goes, I think you should first go to EOS, go party with this time of year, it's the Northern Europeans, all the Swedes and Danes come down here. Later in the season, it's the Southern Europeans. So he goes, go here first, then go to Santorini, and then I think you should see Crete. And then he laid out the whole plan. I'm like, shit, great, I'll do that. So I dropped into the cruise. We have these like open deck cruise ships where all the travelers from all around the world kind of sleep on the deck. And I picked up one of those, went down to EOS, and then the same story repeated. It's nightfall is coming. The boat drops me at the wharf. I don't know where to go. I can't really talk to anybody. I don't know what to do. You have these old crones on the deck or on the wharf going, come follow me. And it's like, should I trust this person? Probably not. But I take a risk, and I trust this old lady, and she follow her up the mountain to this little bunker, this little pension kind of thing. And, I throw my bag into this stone, looks like a prison cell kind of thing. It's like a cot and I think there might've been a sink in there. And I'm like, holy shit, what have I gotten myself into again? And I scratch my head and I relax for a second. I go out and there's this kind of kind of an open hallway with a railing overlooking the town of the main town of EOS. I don't remember the name. There's a bunch of goats off over here, and there's a stone paths and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there leaning on the rail, and this dude comes up next to me, leans on the rail. He's maybe about a 6'5" blonde Swedish dude, jacked, with hair down like to the middle of his back. He looks at me, I look at him, he does the little head nod that dudes do. He goes, hey. And he goes, he didn't say anything, but we stood there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then he looked at me and goes, hey, you hungry? I'm like, yeah. He goes, let's go down into town. So I went with him and his two buddies. His name was Per something, or Per Lindstrom or something like that. Per, Christer, and Stefan. 3 guys I spent the following 7 days doing nothing but 24-hour hanging out in the sun, drinking, eating, going to the local discos. And it turned into this big adventure. So the point of that story is that you throw yourself into the, a pit of chaos and unpredictability, and stuff happens. You meet people and you put yourself into processes that create memories that I didn't live any of that through a camera.
Yeah.
Like you would if you're with your parents or your wife or something like that.
Yeah.
Where your entire life is lived through a video camera or through the iPhone.
Yeah.
You're just there. And it was an interesting 7 days where these Swedish dudes did nothing but they'd wake up at noon, hungover. They would stumble down to the beach. There was a little cafe down at the beach. They'd order some eggs and ham or whatever and start drinking beer right away. And they'd lay out in the sun. And there's maybe 1,000 Swedes down on this particular beach. They're all, 17 to 24. None of them wearing any clothes. And then they would hang out until about 4. Maybe swim in the ocean. And then they would go back, take a shower, meet for dinner, and then start drinking and going to the discos until about 3 o'clock in the morning and repeat. Every day. They do it all summer. They did nothing but smoke and drink. After about 7 days, my hands were shaking so much from the alcohol. I'm like, I gotta get off this island. And then I did it again, where I get on a ship, land someplace. And I'm like, I have no idea. I did that like, I don't know, how many, 10 times, where it was like, you reset and go back to, I started to lose the fear because it's like, it all works out. Right? It all works out eventually.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's the kind of the inception story. That's not the inception story, but that of why I like to solo travel. Actually, the solo travel came from when I was in college. There was we had a 6-week break between Thanksgiving and New Year's, too short to find a job and too long to sit around on your butt. I didn't really want to go home because of other reasons. So I would get this rail pass for Amtrak, and I would just cruise North America.
Yeah. I hear it's beautiful.
On the rail. Yeah. So, Minneapolis to the West Coast and back again, and back and forth,
That's cool,
whatever. So I would do that every year. I did that for 3 years straight.
Yeah.
So I got that desire to travel from all those experiences. And then when I was married, I was not allowed to do that.
Yeah. It's an addictive thing. What I hear, like for example, that moment what you said, like you went on a boat and did it 10 times, while beforehand you were a little bit reluctant, like it's late, shit, where am I going? But once you get going, it has its own energy. I like to call it like playing out the night. Legit, sometimes it's like 9 or 10ish. I think, I know the way back home. Just go back to where I'm sleeping already. I figured that out or whatever. But then I think, nah, let me play it out. And that's when usually my phone dies. I'm in the middle of the nowhere talking to random people, and then it pushes itself forward. And then, sometimes I have those same thoughts, what you said, like, no, not again, not again. But it's quite addictive. I don't know. It's fun,
Yeah. One of the last ones was, I ended up arriving in the Heraklion in northern Crete. Rhythmnon. I don't remember the city names. Rhythmnon or Heraklion. One of those two. Yeah. We arrived at like at midnight, and I'm just walking up this hill in the dark, and there's a bunch of backpackers trudging along. And at that time of night, there's all sorts of bad characters and touts out trying to draw you into the strip joints or into bad clubs. Yeah. And so I'm walking along with this English dude. He was young. He was maybe 18. I was 30. Yeah. We struck up a conversation. He goes, "Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit weird right now." He goes, "Do you want to like look for a room together?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, makes sense." So we did, and then he met up with a group of 3 other Brits, three other women,
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work out. Sounded like it was gonna be fun, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the five of us traveled through Crete, all the way to the south side of the island. We hung out there for a while. Then we eventually parted ways, and then my favorite story was I ended up traveling back up to whatever the northwestern city in Crete. It's a Venetian style city.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on my last $10. So I'm sitting in a bar, waiting for the ferry,
Mm-hmm.
and like I now was accustomed to, I struck up a conversation with another couple. Turned out to be this couple. Their names were Ken and Ann. They owned what was called the Beehive Inn in Newcastle, England.
Okay.
And they took pity on me, and they bought me beer. They bought me food. They gave me conversation, and they didn't expect anything in return. They were just like being kind, generous people. And so that's my last memory of hanging out in Greece, was this kindness of strangers in a difficult situation, strictly because you're a decent individual and you have a decent conversation with somebody about something, and the humanity kind of unfolds when you do that. Now, every once in a while you can get taken advantage of if you're not careful, but in general, people are pretty cool.
Thanks for sharing that, man. That was really fascinating to hear, especially that. So what we earlier talked about, like the alpha beta thing. There's this outlier category. They call it the sigma. I hadn't really heard much about it, but like in the standard deviation, you have the sigma. So the standard deviant.
I know this. I know the principle is certainly articulated very thoroughly in Sanction. If you've read Sanction. So the sigma is alpha-like, but doesn't really want to lead, and is better equipped to be an advisor, a shaman, or the second in command, which frankly is that's my role. I worked for a guy for, I don't know, over 10 years. He ended up being the CEO of a very large public corporation, and so I was his direct report. So I was in a very difficult, challenging environment with this dude was literally as alpha as you can get. All these fakers on Twitter have no idea what alpha is, right? And so I was his direct report, and he needed me to be not alpha. He needed me to be his quote unquote shaman, his second, to be his advisor, somebody he could trust.
Consigliere,
Consigliere, exactly. So that was my role, was to be the sigma. And I was happy with that. My ex-wife, not to pick on her, her sole desire was to be literally CEO of something, which she ended up being. She had more ambition than a lot of these alphas do on Twitter. So I know this kind of ambitious CEO alpha E types. It's not my style. I play a different game. Introversion, right brain, more analytic on the left brain.
I definitely, I just want to share that I heard those qualities seep out a little bit, from the travel stories. There you can see a little bit what kind of person somebody is, because it doesn't happen to a lot of people how you described it. It's a certain type, and these type I tend to, how do you say, sniff out, because when you're sitting and you have to make the selection to make a conversation about somebody, you can go about it in a more calculative way, in the sense you're not gonna pick the guy who's there with a whole posse or something. They're there for their, I don't know, for their annual or their daily festivities or something. You just see they're in group, they're an in group. But you see this couple, for example, that remind me, in Stockholm. I was sitting by myself at so Ardbeg is like a Islay whiskey, at the Ardbeg embassy. I just sat there by this booth, and there was this woman. She looked at me. She was a little bit older, so she wasn't into me. I knew I wasn't per se at the time, but she gave this smile, and I just gave her a nod, and then a dude followed her 1 meter behind, and I was like, oh, they're a couple, But she was making comments in the air to what I call painting the mood. I knew this was a couple that want to have fun, and that's then somebody you can interact with, So they sat down, and And then I said something like, "Can I move my charger or my stuff away?" And then they said, "No, blah blah." But then I could hear from the jovialty. Now you could strike to like have like some fun, and then we shared some drinks and blah blah, and that became like an amazing story. Like that was like months ago, but I like send them like Christmas message like, "Hey, happy holidays," you know. Just yeah, it's just crazy that how you can like zoom in on certain types of people. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's also kind of an internal injury. Like I said, I'm introverted, but like it's also you can practice this thing.
Mm.
And I remember last year, back before we were stuck in COVID, there was a place I used to go nearby my house here in Fort Lauderdale. It's now shut down, unfortunately.
Did it
I
go
was at
bankrupt? You mean, or
yeah, they just were losing money.
yeah,
Half the restaurants are going to be out of business in by next year.
shit.
So I'm at the bar, and I usually keep to myself. I'll have a drink. I'll talk to the bartender. I know the owner. I'll look at my phone.
Yeah.
I was there this one night, and I'm looking at my phone. I'm having a drink, and I'm like, oh man, you're being a little too insular.
Yeah.
So I look around. I look to my right.
Yeah.
Nothing there. I look to my left, and there's an older couple. By older, I mean like 85, something like that.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I really should just say something,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is.
Okay.
So guess what? I did. I'm like, hey, blah blah blah. You look like something, or
Yeah.
you're. I think the guy was wearing a cowboy hat or something. Like, hey, cool hat or something. Right. So then that leads to a 2-hour conversation with an old couple that are from somewhere, and you hear their stories. They hear yours. They want your number. You get theirs. You trade something
Yeah.
in their life, and it's cool. It's cool. That's the practice I do when I travel. But this is a point I've made with other people, that travel isn't really travel. Travel in my mind is a state of mind. So
Yeah. Shit.
it's
Yeah.
it's a sense of adventure. So literally, when I walk out my front door and go to the grocery store, I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah.
I can treat that journey to the grocery store as an opportunity to like run into something weird and interact, reach out to somebody and learn something new. Now, I don't do that every day, but you can treat the daily routine of life as a form of exploration,
Yeah. That's
travel,
good.
if you will. And I always used to tell this story where, people when I lived in Minnesota, people in Minnesota would say, "Oh my God, the steppes of Mongolia are exotic."
Mm-hmm.
Being in a yurt out there would be really weird and intense, and that'd be extreme travel. And I'd say, yes, that's true. But at the same time, you've got a Mongolian herder who thinks that a backyard in St. Paul would be extreme travel to him.
Yeah.
Strange, unique. And so if you can frame your own backyard as something unique, exotic, interesting, you've changed your point of view on the world, and you can live in a different way than just like going through the daily routine. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's why I was letting you like finish off your thought process, because for one, it reminds me of this writer Thomas J. Bevan. A couple of weeks ago, he wrote like he does these weekly essays, his newsletter, and he wrote one of those things that when you go on travel, like I mean, like literally to another country, it's always different the way you eat. Like for example, you take up the menu and like I want to try this, and this, and you're laughing, having fun, talking to the waiter. Suddenly you're a different fucking person, and then you're trying all these drinks, and then talking to other people like at these other tables, smashing around tips. But then he says, but when you go back home, do you do that? You know? And he says you can like go out to lunch in a more like tourist in your own type of town or state where you're from, and it reminds me like what you said, like going to the groceries and just having like an exploration. You have to what they call like go on vacation mode, color your days with a certain intent, and then you can get something of it, you know. And yeah, finally what I want to share, like you asked me like where I am, that is like a little bit snowy, for example. How do I say, I get comfortable fast sometimes, like in a drag, in the sense that, for example, I was sitting with the girl, so we had to smoke or something, we were having a drink. Then it passed into the next day. I was there almost like not comatose, but just looking out the window, you know. And then she said, "Look, it's snowing." And you know how dogs love snow? you know, she's like that. I just looked at the snow. I was like, yeah, like it looks nice, but she was she had this like energy that something was really special now. And for me, it was like, yeah, it's just this fucking window that I've seen like by now 100 times or some shit. And then she said, we must go somewhere. Then we Googled just a random park. And but because of the snow, her energy and my willingness and the energy as well to make it into something special. Then we took some photos. So we went to this park. It was snowing. Lots of dogs were fucking jumpy as well, and then it became a memory. You know,
Yeah.
if you hadn't thought of it in that sense, it would be just, yeah, fuck, it's just snowing, whatever. You know, this happens every year. You know, whatever. But you make something of
Yeah,
it.
no, yeah, that vibe where you combine two people and the circumstances into kind of a new thing in the world. That's pretty cool. On snow, I mean, I spent 50 years in Minnesota, so obviously I'm familiar with cold and snow. I always found the first snow
hmm
was always a little bit magical
Yeah.
and exciting. I loved it. My daughter just went off to college in Chicago,
hmm
and she spent most of her life here in Florida.
Yeah.
And the first day it snowed, she sent me a picture. Dad, it's snowing.
Yeah.
So it's like that first snow creates a lot of energy, a lot of interest, and it's like, yeah, it's exciting. Of course, in February it's a different story. You're a little sick of it.
Yeah, so definitely, like, you should definitely go to if you once have the chance in your lifetime to go to Estonia, so the Baltics, where when it snows you have to hit it, and then they say the old towns, they become almost like Disney, you know, quite magical.
Yeah. You know where else I want to go in winter? The two places I want to go in winter.
Yeah.
One is the North Island of Japan, Hokkaido, in winter, because they get really heavy snows.
Okay.
Big time. And then I also want to go to Iceland in winter. You know, the tourists go in the summer, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, I want to
winter,
go in the winter as well, like, because
winter would
that,
be
yeah,
awesome,
yeah,
right?
it would be
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, maybe, yeah, maybe after this COVID, you know, maybe we can meet up
yeah,
somewhere. That would be cool.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah. Definitely, like, I have my hope. Nah, not hopes up, because like during the last COVID, I was supposed to go to Czech Republic. A friend of mine, he was supposed to get married in Portugal, and yeah, and I think I was gonna go to America as well. Yeah.
yeah. Everybody's got different countries have different rules. The airlines have different rules. It's kind of a hassle to travel right now.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Especially now with the, I don't want to make it too political with the Biden thing and the country and blah blah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's politics is definitely not my brand on Twitter. I don't talk.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I catch myself deleting more, about to be tweets
Yeah, yeah,
because I realize I'm reacting to something,
yeah.
and then I look at what I wrote. And I'm like, no, I'm not playing that game. That's for other people.
Yeah.
I'll keep that to myself.
That's nice, man. Then let's talk about books, because you said you need to fill up with something. That's
Oh
usually like travel or books.
yeah.
Let me ask a different question. Usually people would say like, what kind of books you read, but what kind of books are your top gifts? What have you gifted mostly, or that you like to give?
Weird stuff. Yeah, books. I have a long story with books. I'll talk about the end game. When I moved in 2009 to Florida, in my my ex-wife and I had a pretty big house, and I had this beautiful office with oak floors and floor to ceiling bookshelves and fireplace and high windows and stuff like that. I had 4,000 books.
Okay.
So I had a massive library. And
Did
when
you
I
say
moved to
4,000?
Florida,
Damn.
yeah, 4,000. So a shit ton. It's like 50 boxes of books, something like that. And so when I moved into my much smaller house in Florida, I had room for maybe 300.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get rid of 3,700 books.
Shit.
And there was no market for it. So I had to donate some, recycle some, try to sell some. But yeah, so I don't know. I've read a lot. I read weird stuff like I have a blog post out on books I call voice books.
Okay.
So over 50 years of reading, I've read a lot of stuff, some classic stuff, some pop stuff, sort of technical finance literature, whatever. But there are certain books where the voice of the author kind of sticks in my head, and I can still hear it.
Yeah.
I still hear it. One was Sybil Bedford, a Trip to Don Ottavio. That was a unique one that had a unique voice that I've gifted. I think I sent that one to. I was corresponding a while back with about a year ago with Roman McClay.
Yeah.
I sent that and some other books up his hill. I don't think he's up on that hill anymore, but I don't know. Yeah. Another one was Memoirs of Hadrian by Marguerite Jornstar. It was written in the 40s or 50s. I can't remember. Really unique vibe and voice. The Iliad, I didn't read until I was 40 years old.
Shit, the Iliad.
Like, holy shit, that thing was both violent and affecting in a way. And I can, the story of Achilles and Patroclus, I can still feel it, remember it. I'll tell you, how I didn't really read when I was a kid. I read a lot of science fiction.
Okay.
And I read a lot in college, of course, because it was required reading. We had to read up to 500 pages a night, which is really intense. You can't really do it. But I came out not all that well read. I didn't start reading until I was maybe 35 years old. And then I read, so in a serious way. And so I read a book by a guy named Bruce Chatwin. Do you know him?
No, never heard of him.
Okay, so he wrote a bunch of kind of pseudo travel books. They were later kind of called a little bit of a fraudulent thing, but one of his books was called In Patagonia, and it was about his travels through southern Argentina down to Tierra del Fuego, and I was mesmerized by the story. And then because I was interested, I read a book by Paul Theroux. Do you know him at all?
Is that the Mosquito Coast?
Yeah, exactly. So, and he's well known for his travel essay, travel book. So he wrote a book, the Old Patagonian Express, where he took a train. He tried to train himself from Boston down to the southern tip of Argentina. Well, when he's in Argentina, he's in Buenos Aires, and he interviews the then still alive, I don't know if I can pronounce his name right, Jorge Borges, who wrote all those, exotic stories, ficciones. Do you know Borges?
No. Is he like a cult classic, or should I really know him?
Yeah, he's part of the Western canon. Really unique voice, really interesting stories, both fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was a polymath and blind. He's an Argentine, Spanish-speaking guy, but he knew more about English than most English-speaking people. He knew Anglo-Saxon. He knew Old Norse. He had helped translate some sagas. Really interesting. So anyway, Theroux interviewed him, and I'm like, okay, who's this dude? And then I started reading his stuff. Well, his literature, because it's so embedded in, because he was so smart. I don't know when he died. He was probably in the 60s or something. He was so smart and well-read that his works are infused with the assumption that you know a lot about what's going on in the Western canon and everything written through history. So when reading him, I guess that I won't admit it on a podcast, but I maybe triggered my insecurity in what I did and didn't know in terms of reading. So that went from Chatwin to Theroux to Borges to the universe. And then I started reading as much as I possibly could of everything I could, which really irritated my ex-wife because, like, why are you reading so much? Pay attention to me. So that was a journey. And so I give books like that are a little bit eclectic, a little bit not too Canon-esque, like not the obvious, the usual suspects you might give, but like off the wall stuff.
That's really fascinating.
It's meaningful to me that I remember, that I could still hear in my head.
Yeah, I love that what you said, like voice, that like I don't know how you describe, like in the back of your head, because when I read somebody, so I read this like thriller book once, It had like so it's the Jack Reacher series by Lee Child, and but he
Mhm.
has a certain style, and I was like, why is it a page turner? Then I started dissecting his book, then the author, and then through that I got almost like a method to spot other books. What is the voice, you know? And ever since I got so addicted by that, I wrote like a 200-page essay on it for myself, and that became like one of these like info guides that I put like out on Twitter as
Yeah.
to how to spot the voice, but also to help people channel your own voice. Because if you're gonna copy other people, it's gonna be like you're gonna sound like everybody else, you know. And then you can never have one of those sanction type books that he has such a you cannot copy him, you know. It's very unique, and that's how you become somebody of your own and like almost like a legend, you know.
Yeah. I'll after the podcast, I'll send you a link to that list that I've got.
Thanks, man. Yeah, but definitely like check out. Also, you mentioned Achilles, you know, like in the Iliad, the relationship with Patroclus. There's this modern book. It's called The Song of Achilles. It's written by Madeline Miller. It zooms in on the POV, the point of view of Patroclus. So usually,
Mm.
like Achilles is the superhero, you know, like he swings sword and stuff like that. It flips it on his back, and it's really fascinating to hear about the relationship between those two. You check it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a. If people haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I thought it was it's just one other dumb piece of the canon.
Yeah,
Opened it, I was gripped from the first page. I mean, this is intense,
yeah.
really intense. You know,
Did you also read the Odyssey? The Odyssey.
yeah, yeah. Oh, another book I read that I found really interesting. It was really there's a couple books I've read where I hated every second of reading it, but then I was
You mean
really
Dostoevsky?
gratified. I was thinking of Proust and
Oh,
Thucydides. So I spent 18 months reading the history of the Peloponnesian War,
okay.
and it
Oh,
was
damn. Yeah,
that's a long slog. That's a long, difficult slog. But
yeah,
I was really gratified at the end because it was I was glad to have it in my head in a way. And then the story that really stuck was the story. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sicilian campaign in the history of the Peloponnesian War.
no,
They're going around the Aegean and the Mediterranean. They end up on this military lark in Sicily, and they lose.
yeah,
And the men get thrown into this pit, and they're basically just captives sitting in this pit in the hot sun. And they just the way it's articulated
mm-hmm.
is really affecting because you can actually project yourself into this hot, horrible, difficult, negative situation and have some empathy, some compassion for these dudes that are sweating and probably dying in this pit.
Yeah,
So that's back to voice. I can still hear in my mind's ear that part of the story. That one stuck. And
yeah.
just like I spent almost 2 years reading Proust, which nobody reads him anymore. I mean, it's a challenge because it's from the very earliest part of the 20th century.
Yeah.
A guy who grew up in the late 19th, and so it doesn't really apply to our world anymore. And it's
Yeah.
the translation I had was a little stilted.
Yeah.
And it's really long. It's like, I don't know, 3,000 pages long.
Shit, I didn't
Um,
know that. But I
yeah,
always wanted to read him because he's French, right? So I
yeah.
want to read the authors in their own language because the voice then is most authentic. So, for
Well,
example,
it's challenging. I tried to read a little bit of him in French.
yeah,
Right. My French skills are okay, not great.
yeah,
But the problem is his like American, like think of Hemingway. The sentence is about this long,
mm-hmm.
right? So in Proust, the sentences
Yeah,
are this long, and the connection between the subject and the object
yeah,
get lost. You're 10 miles into a sentence, and you're like, oh wait, where the hell am I?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I had to revert back to English just because I'm like I'm lost. I can't do it.
I know what you mean. I do hope to like, yeah, but yeah, that's another level, you know. Like for example, I was powering through Albert Camus, you know, in French as well. I read some books of his in English. I thought, like, give it a try. But you mentioned like the Borges dude, you know, like he
Mhm.
mentions like the Western canon as if you already know it. Camus does the same thing. He's like, yeah, Kierkegaard, this,
Yeah,
Shakespeare, Hamlet, Don Juan. He throws it all over
yeah,
the place and use it in a way that you already have to know what's it about. I'm like, okay, this like, you know, like,
yeah, yeah. You know, it's interesting. I like Camus because most people don't know this. I have a bachelor's degree in religion, of all things, and so part of my
yeah,
yeah, I'm not just finance. So part of my degree seeking was to deep dive on the works of Camus.
hmm.
So I've been through his whole work
Oh
set of
shit,
works.
what do you like best? I haven't read everything, but I know a little bit. Yeah.
You know, some of his essay stuff, like the Myth of Sisyphus,
Yeah,
or
that's the one I'm reading.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, The Fall, which is kind of a funky, weird one.
Hmm.
Um, I just read his unfinished work called I think it's called The First Man.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I haven't read that one.
yeah, it was unfinished at the time of his death. Couple others. Yeah.
But what made you? Yeah,
I just reread The Plague,
the
the
plague.
Pest.
Yeah.
Right when COVID first hit, that's the first book I hit, and actually, it's a really interesting book for those people dealing with issues of how do we live in a time of plague. That is literally how do you live as a human, as
Yeah.
a man, in a time when bad shit is happening. I found it a very useful book to read at the beginning of COVID. I found it reassuring in a way.
Yeah, I'll try to put it in the in the description of this video because some of the books you mentioned, I can imagine, and not a lot of people would have one read it, two even recommend it. So
Yeah.
hope it helps some people. But what made you like deep dive into like Camus? Of course, like you said, you were getting a degree in religion, but I can imagine you had to make a choice, or you could choose somebody to delve into. What's it about
Well,
this
okay, so
dude and absurdism? What's it about?
yeah, so I graduated 1980, a million years ago, and so the people were still kind of, yeah, you laugh. People were still pretty intensely into existentialism back
Yeah.
in the late 70s.
Okay.
But like Camus wasn't strictly an existentialist. He had kind of a different, slightly off vibe that was on a different vector
Yeah.
than the existentialists. He had a little bit more of a kind of a proto-Christianity in his later works. So he was the rebel's rebel
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
So I thought he was, plus he takes a good picture, overcoat
Well,
with a cigarette,
yeah. Thomas J. Bevan spoke about that one in his latest newsletter. So second time I mentioned him, but he made that interesting reference, like that he puts on a coat but he stopped smoking, so it's like I wish to look like a Camus or something. It was a very obscure reference, and I was like, but it's actually true. True, he makes a good picture. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Plus
a
he had
little
a
bit like
tragic
James
death.
Dean. Huh?
He had a tragic motorcycle death, So yeah, he's total, intellectual romantic hero. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty
I
cool.
was young. I was young. I don't know.
Yeah, for me,
I just went that way.
I think for me, like in French class, they just gave it to me, and when I wanted to dabble in something French, I thought, you know what, let me try this dude because I didn't know anybody else. There's also Victor Hugo with Alexandre Dumas or like Proust, but I just chose this guy because he's known for his like specific way of thinking, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to this day.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking French lit, when I sought to reteach
Hmm.
myself French when I was 45 years old. It's
Okay.
very challenging when you have an older brain
Yeah.
to relearn a language, in my opinion. And so I went through all the books. I went through the online. I went through the tapes. I hired a tutor.
Yeah.
I read incessantly. I found, well, first of all, what I call juvie lit, like the French equivalent of Harry Potter or
Yeah.
like kids' books were very helpful in training. But then the short stories of people like Maupassant and Daudet were really interesting to me. In particular, Daudet, his book, in English Letters from My Windmill, I found really, I still have that on my bookshelf. that's recommended, highly recommended.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking about that, but this falls into like the juvie type of books that you said, then, or
No. That's normal adult literature. It's
yeah,
just because they're short stories, they're easier to
to,
chew on when
yeah,
you're new.
yeah. Okay, no, thanks for the
Like
tip, man.
Maupassant, his book Couldnt I think was the name. A bunch of short stories.
Yeah.
It's awesome, great
Yeah.
book. Highly recommend.
One book that I have been rereading over and over because it's quite childish on the surface level is Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince of Exupéry, because it's actually quite philosophical and dense if you reread it a couple times. But it's written like a children's book with all these like drawings and shit like that.
Yeah. It's totally. It's got, like any really great book, it operates on multiple layers.
Yes.
Right. And I do recognize it. It is remember I think we were talking about this girl that I've only been in love once, I think, when I was 19.
Yeah.
And she gave me that book. She gave me that book as her parting gift. She disappeared. She was a year ahead of me in college, and she disappeared. She joined the Peace Corps and went into the North African desert. And I never heard from her again. And that was the last book. The last thing that she ever gave me was the Little Prince.
Oh, that's strange. Like synchronicity, you know? Like,
yeah.
Damn, man.
Yeah, and then Saint-Exupéry, his other book, Wind, Sand, and Stars. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't read that one. Is it?
Okay, that one's pretty good. That's about his. I don't know if it's fiction or nonfiction. It doesn't really matter. About his time as a pilot flying in both North Africa, and it might have been partly in South America. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's a little bit overplayed in the world weary, cynical Frenchman kind of mode, but it's still a pretty good book, kind of fun read.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna like expand, and also my reading. You know, like sometimes, like when you mentioned, like for example, that you only picked up more reading, like voraciously after 35 or something. I had like these huge spells where I read a lot, but it's so effort time consuming that I can't, for example, do these types of things. You know, also the freaking Twitter thing, and then But I try to.
I'm totally back into reading now. I spent 8 years doing nothing but quantitative finance simulation, stuff like that. That's enough of that. So like, I'm working my way through Sanction a little bit, although that's a little bit of a hard slog. But I reread. I have books from my college days, so I just reread the Rig Veda, which is a 3,000 or 4,000 year old Hindu religious.
Yeah. You mentioned Vedic theory. I was like, oh, he must have read a lot, like to go into that.
Yeah, and I just started the Ramayana, which is the classic big Hindu epic story.
Is that where Prince Arjun is, or is he in the Rig Veda?
I don't know. I can't remember. I won't pretend that I know, but I just started again. Yeah. Because these are great stories. It's a little bit like when I read through the first volume of Sanction. I understood that the author was very well read, and that having a little bit of background in the Western canon was useful to understanding what he was trying to say in that book. I mean, it's a little bit of his whole book seems to be a little bit of a cri de coeur in terms of like he was really stressed out on something, and this book was a release for him. But he's also well read, and he infuses the book with references to freaking everything. So I took a break after the first volume. I went back and reread stuff that I thought would be useful to plowing through the next one. Like, for example, I went back to the Old Testament, read Isaiah, I read Job. These are powerful books, powerful language. Even if you're not hyper religious, if this is powerful understanding of the way the world used to be.
It's just strong storytelling. I can remember Sanction loved the King James Old Testament. He really liked it, and in his way of speaking as well. It's just something that really fits him. Yeah. I think also I don't I think I'm in book 2. I've heard some guys say I'm in book 2.
I'm halfway through 2.
Yeah. So check it out. I'm supposed to be in there somewhere.
oh yeah, that's right. I've heard you're in there. Yeah. Interesting.
So I definitely have to give that a read. It's almost like it's so strange when reality and story and these things come together. Like I find it most strange when somebody calls me out on it, like or mentioned like, "Hey Fury, you're on this page," or I was like, "Shit, I really need to get to volume 2." Like, but that thing is so daunting. Like if you throw it at somebody, you could hurt them. Like.
It's a little daunting,
Yeah.
and I don't know where Roman is now. I think he ran into some trouble on
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
I hope he's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I think Bodhisattva says he has a Patreon, which leads to a certain group where you can communicate with him or something. So.
Yeah, no, he divorced from all that. He shut all that down.
Oh yeah. Damn.
There was a Telegram group that was
Yeah.
affiliated and then separated and went off into its own unrelated mission.
Yeah. 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 Then he's now how do you say, as he truly was, like like a ghost, like the cipher. Yeah. And now he's doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Now he's doing it. But he's left us the books. This is what mythologizes him. Like. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he is an artist. Whether his character, I don't know anything about him personally. I talked to him a couple times on the
Yep.
phone, but how much can you know about somebody else?
Yep, that's true.
All really creative artists have some kind of unusual nuances in their real life that you have to kind of understand a little bit, but then ignore because the art stands on its own, independent from the whatever positive or negative character flaws are. And think of I don't know, Picasso was a philanderer and Heidegger was a Nazi. So is the work mooted by their personal lives? I don't know, probably not.
Yeah, you should look at it standalone. That's very true. At least I try to always, and it's especially hard with these things because people see me now with these podcasts. They think they know me. That's usually why I don't give too much information about myself. Only if it's relevant, I'll share it. But it's hard to separate yourself, from these things, especially if you start to turn in some kind of meme. Then you belong to the audience. Then what is the definition of art and creator? Where is the boundary? And definitely you have to be careful with these things.
Yeah.
So I don't have any questions left. I had written everything down along the way. That really, maybe one last thing that I've encircled here is that you mentioned like about these alphas. Like you said, let them have kids. Let life etch them, to quote you a little bit, and see where they stand. What is it for you that parenting has brought you that maybe another person wouldn't see it like that? Like
That's
what
a
has it
that's
brought
a that's a long story. We'll be on this podcast for another hour. I'll try to do the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
So when I was, I don't know, I could do the math. I don't remember how old I was. Let's call it late 30s, 38 or 39 or something.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I she got pregnant, but she, like I said, she was a very intense, very ambitious woman, globe-trotting CEO. She actually was on the cover of some newspapers and magazines. Shit. She had a trip to the Obama White House.
Shit.
So she was one of these people that was playing the game, right?
Yeah.
And she would leave Monday morning at 5 o'clock and come back Friday at 10 p.m. every week for 18 years. So over that 18 years, that's elapsed. I did the math once. The elapsed time gone was a little over 12 years.
Yeah.
So she was not present in the world, and we had babies. And so after the first, when she was pregnant, she's in labor in the hospital. This is not a ding on her. I'm just describing. She was in labor on conference calls in the hospital, having contractions.
Damn.
And then we had this cute little baby girl. And then I kind of want to say 10 days later, it might've been 2 weeks, but let's say 2 weeks, just to be generous. She hands me this baby and she goes, "I'll be back next week." So here I am, 38, in the middle of a career, holding an infant girl. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
What? I don't know what to do. So I didn't have any aunties, no grandmas, no mother-in-law, no mother, nobody around me.
Yeah.
So I took care of it. I used daycare for a while. We had a second baby.
Yeah.
Was it 4 years later?
Yeah.
And then I waved the white flag. I surrendered. I'm like, at the time, she and I had plenty of money, a lot of resources. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to outsource these kids to a third party.
Yeah.
So I retired from my career at, how old was I don't know. It was a long time ago. And then we had a third child. And then I was, I hate to use this, I hate this term, the Mr. Mom kind of thing, but I was the full-time caregiver. And then in 2000, the youngest was born in 2004. Then we divorced in 2009. And then that's when I retired to maintain the continuity of care, because I had been present in their lives 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, full-time, and then half-time on weekends for 12 years. So to answer your question, that journey, if we want to use that word, over the last 24 years, I view as a type of really intense purpose. It was providential. It was something that the universe, if you believe in God, God demanded of me to take care of this. And my ex would kill me if she watch this podcast, but like, it would be like, if the universe looks down, like, that woman's going to abandon her husband and children for 18 years. Let me see, that guy can take care of this situation.
Yeah.
And he will, no matter what happens, she's going to like do what she does. This guy can take care of business.
Yeah.
So I felt for 24 years, a serious sense of purpose. Yeah. So to tie this back to your question, people talk about alpha on Twitter. They're talking about, I'm a big jack dude and I'm going to get a lot of sex.
Yeah.
Well, no, the most alpha thing you can do is take care of your family. Yeah. It's difficult. It requires sacrifices that you can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I'm now getting out of that game. My two oldest my oldest is off to her first big job. Second one's off in another city at college. The third one is almost out. So that purpose, that the providential purpose that I was given, I think, by the universe, I'm almost completed with. But I had that really intense feeling of it being necessary for me to take on that thing. Yeah. So is that alpha? No, because like if you talk to, say, Tate or to somebody, or like Rolo or something like that, be like, no, that dude was total beta. He was taking care of kids, stuff like that. But you know what? I don't think so. I don't frame it in my head like that. I feel like I was a freaking Viking warrior with scars from having gone through that experience. That was a challenge. It destroyed a marriage. It crushed me when it all broke. It was the battle of a lifetime to keep them. I'll tell you two stories. We can round this out with this kind of thing. So, number one, I have three daughters, and they are smart, kind, generous. The three of them and I are bonded in ways that most dudes can't even comprehend. The oldest just graduated, if I can brag, she just graduated with honors from Stanford. Economics. She won the John G. Sobieski Award for Creative Thinking in Economics from Stanford.
That's right? Beautiful, man.
So, and then she went on to grad school there for a year, got straight A's in this grad program. So so did I succeed in getting her through the world? Yes. And the second one just matriculated University of Chicago, great place, smart kid. She loves me. And then here's the best story of all. So they're smart and they're successful, and I'm bonded with them, but they're also this. I don't know if this is attributable to me. I'm going to assume it is, but like,
go ahead.
Their relationship to each other is really sweet and caring. Like I just found like 2 hours ago, in my youngest daughter's room, a little Post-it note from her older sister that said, very simply said, "Bye, I love you, I miss you."
Yeah.
Right. So the two, that's an indicator the two of them are, have this.
Yep.
Where it could have easily been a situation where you have this mammoth weird move to Florida under difficult circumstances and a divorce, that the kids would end up pregnant, drug using alcoholics.
Yeah.
But no, so I think I was vindicated in my choice to retire and to focus on that. Even though, I mean, think how much that cost me over 10 years. And I was a highly paid executive in whatever year it was. And I forewent all of that for a long time. So monetarily, it was very expensive. Emotionally, it was challenging. So when people talk about alpha, I laugh.
Yeah.
People, I frame alpha in different terms. I frame alpha as somebody who's going to lead their children and take care of business when times are hard. That's alpha. It's not picking up girls.
Yeah. No, you made what I hear, like to rephrase it, like a kind of sacrifice. I really felt it when you said to take care of the family, because it's a form of sacrifice of energy, time, monetarily, all these facets that you have there in life. And specifically, time is the ultimate resource, actually. It's so finite, it's so precious, it's so beautiful, and you give the time meaning to what you ascribe it to, and
yeah,
it cannot be
denied,
man.
This is why I'm so interested in what I call the next stage, this step 3 of life that I'm going into.
Okay.
I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm not totally sure.
Yeah.
I'm switching to right brain, but what does that mean? And I'm going to move to Montana, but that's not really a goal. That's just a physical relocation.
Yeah.
What's the next purpose? I don't know. I think I'm just going to wait for a lightning bolt to whack me and tell me what it is.
Yeah, I do believe you'll be fine, man, because what you mentioned, how you can create something to exploration, you called it. So you color a certain process. I like to see it like that. So this process that you're going to, I do believe you will give it a sense of purpose. You'll give it a nice color that has only a naming and do.
Well, what's interesting is that I'm not going to force it. A lot of people who retire, they'll do it at a traditional age, like 65.
Yeah.
And they'll what do they do? Like, I'm going to play golf.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to take cruise trips to the Caribbean or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Or they're like, oh, I'm going to volunteer at I don't know, whatever, at a dog shelter or the children's hospital or something. And they jump right into things to fill time. Oh, okay. So I've had almost 11 years of quote unquote retirement, and now that the kids are gone, I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to go play. I don't want to play golf, but I'm not going to go do a big volunteer thing. I'm not going to jump back into a full-time career. I decided this last week. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to do nothing. I mean, not nothing, but I'm going to do very little.
Yeah.
Just wait. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to read. I'm going to meditate about it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to think. I'm going to relax and not force it, and kind of see what unfolds.
Yes. It sounds beautiful, man. Yeah. That's where magic kind of happens, from your unconscious, because there's what they call in psychology incubation. This is when these eureka moments come up, and especially if you have so much in the tank from you. I can only imagine if you sit still and let your mind wander, what will come,
Yeah.
Yeah. So usually the last part is reserved for some kind of plug or something promotional, or last thoughts that you want to give to the audience.
Well, I sell nothing.
Yeah.
I pimp nothing. I sell nothing. I'm shilling nothing. I have no program, no fitness programs, nothing. I sell nothing.
Yeah.
Last words, I don't know.
Maybe some words of encouragement, I don't know, or a motif that stuck with you throughout.
Well, drawing energy from travel. The life of having a family, of having kids, is beautiful. On the fitness thing, I'll plug this. One of the most interesting phenomena the phenomena they see is, I feel really self-conscious when I throw out some of these vanity pictures, but invariably, I did this. This is a funny story. I was reluctant to do it. I hate Facebook. So I did it on Facebook once.
Yeah.
And I instantly got a direct message from a woman I dated like 10 years ago.
Damn.
You know, saying, "Oh, you're so vain." You know, I'm like, "Ah, screw you." You know, but the next day I got a.
She wants attention, by the way. Don't give it to her.
Yeah. Well, she's thinking like a child. But the next day I got a direct message from a guy that I hadn't talked to since 1976. Guy I went to high school with, and he's a well-known guy. He was a CEO of, he was a big investment banker, and then he became CEO of Allen Edmonds, the shoe company, in I think it's in Milwaukee or something like that. So well-known guy, big, tall, 6'4", blonde Scandinavian dude. And he goes, "Hey, you remember that buff picture you put on Facebook a while back?" He said, "I just want to let you know that I really appreciated it. It changed my life." He said, "We're the same age." He said, "I was overweight. I was sedentary. I didn't think I could do it. And when I saw that thing," he said, I knew I could do it." Yeah. So that's the plug. If you're a middle-aged man, the thing about middle-aged men in their, let's say their mid-50s, they are typically either heading towards the end of their career stalled, or they're laid off, or they're fired, or they're retired. Yeah. They're in a weird situation with their marriage. Their wife's not sleeping with them. Their kids are adolescents, kind of biting their heels. They're depressed. They're overweight. They're in a kind of a dark place. So the journey I went on, starting at 58, where I lost 35 pounds, put on some muscle, which gives you a ton of confidence. Your psychology just, people talk about how it changes you. It really does. Yeah. So if the message is to guys in their 50s, it is possible to transform your life in really intense ways. Yeah. If you can make a little bit of effort, a little bit of commitment. It does work.
Yeah, I think
that's my pitch.
I think they need to hear it from somebody like you. You know, for example, if I would say it, they would think, "Ah, you're young." They would just use that as an excuse or whatever. But if they can hear it, like you said, that guy, he saw it. There's nothing more powerful than like a peer. You know, like shit.
Well,
you know.
Yeah. Well, my classic was this. I have this triptych of before and after pictures, before, middle, and after. Yeah, I'll do it every once in a while. If I drink too much, I'll throw it out on Twitter because I am as egotistical as anybody else.
Yeah.
I'll put it out there. The point is, it showed for the progression 58 to 60 to 61, from pretty heavy to whatever. I don't want
what it is right now. It's a good photo, man.
Right. So people see that, like some people go, "Oh man, the dude's so vain." But it's the middle-aged men. It's the 50-year-old men, like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. How did you do it? Yeah. What's your program? I'm in a terrible place. My career sucks. My wife won't sleep with me. My kids hate me. Yeah. I'm overweight. Yeah. I want to do something. What do I do?" Well, you stop eating junk and, get to the gym. Yeah.
So so you hear it, guys. There's always a chance, and you've heard it. Yeah.
Now, if I was on Twitter, it'd be like, 12 copies of my program left. Send money.
Yeah. Send money now. Even what's so funny about that 12 left thing? Like, even the guys that sell, like, sometimes I'm in group chats with them, and even they joke amongst themselves how ridiculous it is. Like 9 left. Like
9 left.
Yeah. So, but thanks for coming on. It's been like almost 2 hours. I think I learned a lot from you personally. I think, like I said, this is very, like, I do it for selfish reasons. I had a lot of energy.
Like I said, I'm a vampire. I'm sucking energy from the young.
Yeah.
And you have the. I'll go out there I'll go on a limb. Yeah. You have the strongest life energy of the accounts that I follow. I mean, you really put out this, live vibe, like, dudes, live.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
It's really intense.
you
So
know what it is. Like, what's really strange, I can talk about it. Like, I think it was Roman Astral, the painter.
yeah,
He said there's something in the eyes. Sometimes they take pictures of me, like a little bit like that vanity thing. And then I ask people, what's it about? Because it's just an Asian kid, or an Asian young man or whatever. And they say, some artists at least can see in my eyes, yeah, something to live, like there's something like that spark. And I
well,
don't know. Yeah,
it's like you always have these pictures with the suit coat and the cigar,
yeah.
right? I don't know if did you see that one? I kind of mimicked you, and I took a picture of me in a suit and a shirt, and I'm like I'm playing the Fury game.
Yeah, I was really
Right?
honored by that,
Yeah,
man. I was really honored
yeah,
by that.
yeah. That was a good picture too. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, I don't know what it is, it reminds me, now that you talk about clothing, like, for example, it was always with me that if I had my best clothes hanging in the closet, I didn't like that feeling. It was, like Americans love to say, you play for keeps, you go all in. And it's for me, like, I want to be my best actually all day, every day, wear my best clothes, meet, date, the best. Always, it's not possible, of course. I'm not naive, but I want to at least intend for that. And I think it exudes in sometimes the garments that I chose. Yeah. But yeah, it's quite humbling though. Like what you
yeah,
said, like the life force. Yeah, I have to beat these people, like, because I'm also like a competitive guy. I have to beat these people at something. So I'll definitely take that
yeah,
one, man.
yeah.
Yeah. So
You need an app where we can track where you are on the map of the world.
yeah,
So you seem like you move around quite a bit, or did.
yeah,
I'm like, shit. Where's Fury now? Like, I'll
yeah.
see a picture. I'm like, man, he's someplace new.
That's also a thing, right?
It's
Sometimes I'm
exciting.
quite stationary, so I like to stay around with my family or this girl that I'm seeing, and it's always, where is he now? As if like, dude, I was just chilling there for like a couple weeks, couple months. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. The people look to me in some form of way, and I try to respect that and try to live my own life, but also, yeah, lead the example. Yeah.
yeah. So where does this show up? Is this podcast? Where do you find it?
Oh,
Is it on
yeah,
YouTube or
yeah.
something?
I'm
Or?
gonna put it on YouTube with your permission, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I'm assuming that you have other podcasts. I should subscribe to your YouTube.
Yeah, you can subscribe if you want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can check out
I
the other
probably should.
conversations. Yeah,
I probably should now. Now that I've been talking to you, probably better.
it's. I hear that I, how do you say, like, ask insightful questions, and sometimes have a good vibe or connection with the guest, and that's why I try to handpick them, cherry pick them, and not just for random cloud. This guy had a 20K account, blah blah blah. I just choose them for something that sparks my interest, and then I know I can like bite down on, and this really came true, man.
Yeah, cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I'm gonna stop recording now. Thanks again. HOOA. You gotta say it. You got
Yeah, HOOA.